Hello there. Welcome in to a Friday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the Extra Sports 1300 app to do your listening. And that app is sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics await you. And yes, a new Michael Porter Jr. quote dropped today. Give you the latest on that. And that might be the most important story of the day. But it's not where I will start. If you want to, by the way, give your thoughts on this Friday, feel free to do so. The text and phone line are 719-247-1313. I will not start with Michael Porter Jr., but I will start with Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos. And throughout this week, we've talked a lot about, well, really the last few weeks, we've talked about what Bo Nix will or will not be sometime in the not so distant future. How about we have a conversation today about what he is right now and what the Broncos need to do around who Bo Nix is right now as a quarterback. And what he is now is a quarterback going into just his second year of professional football, who, according to his coach, needs the right picture painted for him.
We talk all the time about, painting the perfect picture for the Q. In order to get the best out of that position, are the splits correct, the depth of the routes correct, the run, when all the stuff around them is on point, you're going to get the best, cleanest evaluation of that player. And you guys see it in the preseason. Maybe there's a real good quarterback goes in, but he's with the second group and they're having trouble blocking the one end. And so it's hard to get an evaluation of the QB because he's kind of a reflection. It's not like a pitcher in baseball that can just go in there and throw his stuff.
Now, I would say that while what Sean Payton said at the end there is correct, there are a few quarterbacks in this league who do compare to pitchers that just come into the game, do their thing, and they are largely unaffected by their surroundings. Patrick Mahomes has had a revolving door of wide receivers and a makeshift and shoddy offensive line, and still has only spent one Super Bowl Sunday watching the game from his couch. The Bills can simply take away the only wide receiver to amass multiple 1,000-yard receiving seasons that Josh Allen has ever known, and Josh Allen can still win a Most Valuable Player award. And Lamar Jackson, depending on the day, can either be running Lamar Jackson or passing Lamar Jackson. And by every day that goes by, both are becoming equally lethal. Those are guys that if anybody were to be compared to pitchers in baseball, it would be those three. Bo Nix is not one of them. And until he is, if he ever is, the Broncos need to continue to paint that picture. Tomorrow night, the running back competition will be the main topic of conversation. Jaleel McLaughlin, Audric Estime, Tyler Bidet, and Blake Watson. 4 backs for seemingly just 2 roster spots. But ultimately what that is a preseason storyline. Who running backs 3 and 4 are on the Broncos roster will matter far less, barring injury, once the regular season rolls around. It's a big deal now. It's not going to be a big deal when the Broncos take the field against the Titans. When the real football begins, it will be about J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey. The backs that were brought in not simply to compete for a spot on the roster, but to improve one of the league's worst rushing offenses. Bottom 10 yards per carry, bottom 10 rushing touchdowns. That is the part of the picture that Sean Payton hasn't finished yet. He has his subject. That's Bo Nix, the focal point of his work of art. He created the environment around him, a beautiful environment around him with that offensive line and those happy trees that he has painted throughout his receiving corps. And see, that works on a couple different levels because they're tall, the receivers and Evan Ingram. But the running game is, to Sean Payton's masterpiece, what the missing belly button is to the Birth of Venus by Botticelli. It's a glaring omission. It's something that you look at and say, I can still appreciate this work of art, but I notice this thing that is missing. The Broncos offense last year was a piece of art worth appreciating. They won 10 games. They're one of the 10 highest scoring teams in the National Football League. Overall, there was a lot to like about what Sean Payton painted. But you did notice that, didn't you? That one thing. It's like there should be something there. And that was the running game from running backs. Bo Nix did his best every once in a while, but that's not his job. And you know what's funny about all of this? You know, for years, a good running game was a given with the Denver Broncos. It was, no matter what else was going on, you just, well, they're going to have a 1,000-yard rusher. Right? What they did in the Shanahan years with Terrell Davis, but even Olandis Gary, Mike Anderson, Tatum Bell, like, it was a given. You could set your watch to it. Even when things have been very bad. Vance Joseph as head coach. Not figuring out the quarterback position. Still, Phillip Lindsay, back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. That was the thing you could count on. What the Broncos are lacking right now is the one thing that even when everything else was burning to the ground with the Denver Broncos, still got that run game. And now they might, in many people's opinion, have everything else except that. I mean, no Sean Moreno and Willis McGahee rushed for 1,000 yards for the Denver Broncos. And look, what Sean Payton wants to see out of the run game is not one singular 1,000-yard rusher. In fact, his arrival in New Orleans put an end to a stretch where the Saints had 6,000-yard rushers in 7 seasons. Sean Payton showed up, and the only 1,000-yard rusher they have had since is Mark Ingram in 2016. So the idea that the Broncos are going to break this streak of 5 seasons without a 1,000-yard runner, I don't think they're going to do it. Whether you believe in the backs they have or not, it's just not the way Sean Payton does things. But what he's even looking for in a run game, he hasn't gotten. What he's looking for in running backs, he hasn't had. since he arrived in Denver. Javonte Williams getting just over 500 yards on less than 4 yards a carry. That's not going to cut it. In fact, everybody who ran the ball for the Denver Broncos didn't even amass 2,000 yards. Every single back and Bo Nix. And for years, the Denver Broncos could bank on half that from one guy. So to finish his masterpiece, at least the one in his mind that is a masterpiece, he needs that run game. And the problem is the candidates are less than ideal, right? Less than a sure thing. One is a rookie, and the other is a veteran who is basically, if there is a cruciate ligament to tear, he has torn it. ACL, MCL, LCL, which I forgot even existed. And just for good measure, the Achilles, the hamstring, and he's broken his leg. So the talent in the room is better than it has been since Sean Payton arrived in Denver. I don't think you can argue that. But the idea that this collection of running backs is ultimately going to give the Denver Broncos the one thing from their offense that you just didn't see last year. Again, it's far from a sure thing. And the idea that this Broncos running game is going to produce at a much higher level than they did last year is not beyond questioning. There's a reality here where Sean Payton is trying to paint this masterpiece with a worn-out brush, a brand-new brush that sheds bristles, and a pack of $5.99 brushes that were on sale at Michael's. And you're going to see him paint with those guys tomorrow night. That's what he may be working with here. So while it's worth questioning whether the Broncos' rush offense is going to be that much better, if he is able to pull it off and if he is able to finish this painting for Bo Nix, it might be one of his best paintings yet. But Bo Nix needs that painting. He is just at this point, and this cannot be argued, at this point, what he will be at a later date, we can continue to debate. But what he is right now is not somebody who can get even close to that Mahomes, Allen, Lamar status where basically he can show up, do his thing, everyone else can do whatever they want and still expect to win football games. That's not Bo Nix going into year two. And as other teams game plan a little bit better, have more information at their disposal to try and limit what Bo Nix is capable of, it's going to become even more important. We could talk about the running game being the missing piece. They got by without it last year. I don't think they can this year. So enjoy the running back competition tomorrow night. I'll certainly be watching. We'll be talking about it on Monday. But once these preseason games go by, the names Bidet, McLaughlin, Estime, and Watson are going to become far less important. And it will be about Harvey and Dobbins, who you will not see more than likely tomorrow night. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the Denver Broncos, just in general. Coming up next, the NCAA, nice of them to do this, and on a Friday, no less, have dropped the penalties and their findings for the Michigan case involving Connor Stallions and disguises and filming. Today on the crime and punishment part of the show, the NCAA, you want to talk about a Friday news dump, dumping their findings from the Michigan sign stealing case and the ensuing penalties. I will give you the Cliff Notes version. Jim Harbaugh let all this happen and did not cooperate with the NCAA investigation. He gets a 10-year show cause order. And Michigan can't punish him because he is now the head coach of the Chargers. Connor Stallions, the main character in our story, was found to coordinate illegal in-person scouting and sign-stealing operations. It was very... what's the word I want to use? It was essentially it was above and beyond, because that's what proponents of Michigan have said. Like, people do this. Okay, do they buy plane tickets for a bunch of different people and send them to different stadiums to record signs? And do you dress up in a disguise and stand on the sideline of another team's field to do the same thing? No, you don't do that. He gets an 8-year show cause order. Sharon Moore, apparently he deleted text messages about the investigation. He can continue to coach because Michigan already suspended him. And now be week 3 and 4 this season. And there were some other members of the Michigan staff who have since been fired, so they are not punishable. Here's essentially what it comes down to. Michigan is going to get fined a ton of money. A ton of money is what they are going to get fined, and nothing else. Which brings up the question, I saw Brett McMurphy of The Athletic, I think he's still with The Athletic, put this out there. Would you pay $20 or $30 million for your team to win a national championship? That's essentially what this boils down to. And I can't say that there is a deep-pocketed booster in the United States of America that wouldn't do that. In fact, Cody Campbell is paying way more to try and get one for Texas Tech. So, did Michigan get off easy? No vacated scholarships, no vacated wins. The national championship still stands. And a school that is one of the richest in America and has so many deep-pocketed boosters is out a few shekels. Yeah. I think Michigan got off easy, but I was thinking about this, and I'll tie it into what's going on with Rashee Rice. We want justice. We crave justice in the sports world and outside of it. But we also crave swift justice. This is so far after the fact that I don't even know how many people truly care anymore about this. Maybe it'll get Ohio State fans all riled up. Maybe it'll get Michigan fans riled up defending the indefensible. They cheated. Michigan cheated. They cheated. They cheated. It's a fact. And don't let any Michigan alum tell you any different. They cheated. They're still going to go down as the national champions. They didn't punish Michigan with a postseason ban that year that it happened. So was justice swift? Not really. Which tends to be the case with the NCAA. The wheels of justice turn very slowly in Indianapolis. And they turn so slow that once the punishment gets handed down, most people shrug their shoulders and go, okay. And because the justice wasn't swift, is it really that effective of a punishment and ultimately a deterrent? Because that's the bigger picture here. People get thrown in jail for things, not just to punish them for what they did, but to be a deterrent to others who may think, you know what, I would like to do what that guy did. And that their answer is, don't you dare, because you could get X number of years in prison. Is this punishment a deterrent for what Michigan did? I don't see how it is. Now, would most, and I mean, it's like most crimes that are perpetrated in the world. I think most people would look at somebody committing a crime and go, yeah, that's not for me. I know they were able to get a bunch of money by robbing that bank, but I'm just going to try and work hard and invest well. Not going to go and put on a mask of a dead president and go try and rob a bank. I'm good. So, and I will say this, in fairness to most college football programs, I don't think that most college football programs, upon seeing what Michigan did or knowing what Michigan was doing, would go, yeah, let's do that. I'll say that for the majority of college football programs in America. But if there are some on the fence, I don't know that they're looking at this and going, man, we better not. Because the more callous question, I suppose, is, was it worth it? It was. It was. It absolutely was for Michigan. And even you look back and I see people complaining, look at what happened to USC. Look at what happened. Does anybody say that USC didn't win the national championship that was vacated? Who says that? Who goes back through when you're sitting with your buddies and going, hey, can you name the last however many national champions? And you get to USC's year and you're like, not USC. No. So in that way, I think that the NCAA, even vacating the national title, would not be doing anything because everyone would still say, yeah, Michigan won that year. So it's not a severe punishment. And it won't act as a deterrent to others for doing that. If anything, they'll just say, hey, go ahead and put that fake mustache away. They're going to be looking on the sidelines for guys in fake mustaches. They'll just take some of the good, throw out some of the bad of the Michigan sign stealing, and away they go, if they are so inclined. We want justice, but we want swift justice. And the NCAA nor Michigan gave us swift justice. The thing that all of this was for happened. Michigan won a national title. And not even the NCAA can really take that away from them. We want justice, but we want justice to be swift. Because if it's not swift, then is it the level of justice that we are craving? Moving to Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice, the incident in question happened a year ago. And now the NFL is just getting around to having a disciplinary hearing because, of course, there are very important things that the NFL is doing, like becoming a stakeholder in ESPN, that they can't sit down for 10 minutes and talk to Rashee Rice. And, oh, by the way, they're going to do it at the end of September. So they're not even doing it before this season. So already a year has passed, and then the NFL basically said, what's another month? And I don't blame the conspiracy theorists for coming out of the woodwork. I don't. Look at the first month of the season for the Kansas City Chiefs. And if you look closely, you will see that one of their new partners, YouTube, has a game that is exclusive to them that the Chiefs are playing in to open the season against the Chargers. They also have a Monday night game on the channel the NFL just bought that the Chiefs are playing in. They have a Sunday night game that will air in the largest market in America when the Chiefs play the New York Giants on Sunday Night Football, another primetime game. And they also have a late window on CBS showdown between Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. I do not blame the conspiracy theorists for going, why are they waiting this long? It does appear that they are protecting the investment of some of their television partners and their new venture with ESPN. That's what it looks like. Now, I would say that look at the next few games and you will notice that the Chiefs are once again on ESPN. They are in a late window on Fox, a late window on CBS. That's just kind of the Kansas City Chiefs schedule. They're going to be on NBC. CBS and Fox are going to feature them. These streaming partners are going to put the Chiefs on their platform. It's kind of their whole schedule. So is that the reason? Discuss amongst yourselves. Or you could text me at 719-247-1313. But the bigger point here is Rashee Rice is going to be punished. Not only the year after his incident, but a full month into this NFL season. And at that point, how satisfying will be that justice? Because say what you will about Michigan and what happened there. What Rashee Rice did is an actual crime. He is serving jail time for it. And the NFL is waiting this long to punish him for staining the shield and waiting this long to somehow create a deterrent from other reckless, dangerous, harmful behavior. Will that act as a deterrent? I mean, what Rashee Rice did, most people are already deterred from it, to be fair. But the punishment is a punishment, but it's also supposed to be a deterrent. Is it going to feel like the NFL really made an example out of Rashee Rice after he gets a month to get the Chiefs off to a good start, to satisfy all of the NFL's television and streaming partners? And then maybe they'll lose him around the bye week. Don't forget that. He might be suspended around the time they have a bye week. Now, and you could look, you can make it about the Chiefs and add this to the referee calls and all this kind of stuff if you want. But if this were a Bronco receiver, a Baltimore receiver, in fact, the Chiefs thing kind of works more in the direction of people craving justice. People want Rashee Rice to be punished. And they can say it's about the actual act, but has a little bit to do with the team that he plays for, doesn't it? Like, can we come to an agreement? You want Rashee Rice to be punished more because he plays for the Chiefs. And I'll admit that maybe the NFL is slow playing Rashee Rice's suspension because he's on the Chiefs. If we can agree on that, then we'll just move on. We want justice, but we also want swift justice. And in these two particular cases, now that the Michigan punishment has come down, and when Rashee Rice's suspension happens in October, are you going to be like, yeah, good job, NCAA, good job, NFL? No. No, you're not. So I don't know if the NCAA is patting themselves on the back. I don't know if the NFL will, but neither one of them deserve to. We can all agree on that, at least. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on the findings and punishment for the Michigan football program. And if, by the way, if you would like to donate to the collective for Michigan, they are called the Wolverine Backers, and you can go to their website and donate. I actually don't know what the name of their NIL collective is, but I would bet you some money came in over the last few hours. 719-247-1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. We want swift justice, not just justice, don't we? When it comes to the sports world, NCAA today bringing down the hammer. Michigan, you get fined a lot of money. Take that as they charge students 6 figures to attend their school. And then the NFL says, we'll get around to punishing Rashee Rice, but let's just get going with the season first, guys. Like, let's do that. And then we'll really give you what you want. Your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Brett says it seems crooked college coaches often leave for the pros when they know they're going to get suspended or fined. In other words, the Pete Carroll syndrome. Is he the first to do that? Because I think, to be fair, we need to find the first guy to do it and then name the syndrome after him. But certainly there's not another one ringing a bell, so we'll go with Pete Carroll. Yeah, that must. I love this show cause thing. Jim Harbaugh, if you're going to hire Jim Harbaugh, just know he's going to be suspended for a year. Yeah, let's see when that happens, shall we? I love that they throw that in there. Like, look, it's all of these things, though. Like, you're just focused on the fact that they're not vacating wins and they're not losing scholarships because they said it would be unfair to the student athletes. I don't know. The portal exists. How about you do this? How about you do give Michigan a postseason ban, and then you say, because it doesn't matter, everyone seems to be able to transfer whenever they feel like it, you can all transfer right now. Go ahead and go. Or maybe just the NCAA could say, we are allowing all Michigan players this week only to transfer out if they don't want to play for a program like Michigan. Now that all of this stuff has come to light and we're all shocked at their findings, as if we didn't already know that all of this was absolute fact when it was happening or when it was originally found out. How about do that? That would be a real punishment. Free transfer. Open up a third transfer window. Only Michigan players starting now. I don't know. Is it fair to the student? I used to be on that, but then they had 2 transfer windows and revenue sharing and NIL, and I'm like, I feel like they're starting to balance the scales a little bit. And also, are we going to keep looking at these student athletes? I'll say that. How about student athletes in major college football? Are we looking at them like anymore like they're being taken advantage of? Like we have to protect them at all costs? Like there are still some student athletes that I feel that way about, but they play Olympic sports. They don't play football or men's basketball. Like, I'm sorry. Football, men's basketball at the major college level, you guys are good. Not worried about you. But okay, whatever. You don't want to punish players that had nothing to do with it. Seems okay. But yeah, 10-year show cause. And for Connor Stallions, too. Whoa. That Connor Stallions bonanza trying to get him to be a Division I head coach. That's really going to be tough. Here's another one from the 719. Do you think this Michigan win, now tied to a cheating scandal, will have the same type of outcome that the Houston Astros dealt with? No. And I have a few reasons why. in no particular order of importance, just as they are coming to mind. There was a little bit more in the moment cheating that was going on with the Astros. And here's what I mean by that. The buzzer, the trash can banging. Like they were getting information, and it's a slightly nuanced difference. Like Michigan had information, right, that they would be able to relay, but like they got it elsewhere and then brought it to Michigan. Whereas with the Astros, like they were getting it in live time. They knew the very next pitch because they saw the signal. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's part of it. The Astros were doing it. This wasn't intel through ill-gotten means. This wasn't, Spygate. This was right then and there in the moment, buzzer under the shirt, fastball. So I think that's one reason why the Astros hold a special place in everyone's hearts. I think the fact that the players, comparing it to Michigan, and they say if we punish Michigan now, it's a bunch of players who are not, a lot of them weren't even at Michigan when it was going on. Like the fact that the Astros players, Altuve, Correa, none of these guys were punished. I think that makes more with Houston. And I'll say a third reason would be the fact that now Michigan football, still a big deal, but Michigan, the football team, kind of an afterthought now. Once Harbaugh left, once they won that national title, I mean, you saw what Michigan football is, right? I don't want to say they're irrelevant, but they're not in the national conversation right now. We're not talking about them as a playoff team, whereas the Astros use this to springboard into a dynastic-like run. I think that's also part of it, too. Michigan did their thing, and it should be more shame on them, I suppose, because you see now what they have become. And I think a lot of it has to do with Harbaugh. Maybe more than they're not cheating anymore. Harbaugh leaving is a big blow to Michigan. But if Michigan were going into this year, let's say they won last year, or they were among the teams we thought could win this year, I think more people would have a reaction, that visceral reaction to Michigan the way they do Houston. But I think there are a few differences between the two that this will not rise to level. And maybe to Brett's, what Brett brought up, I don't want to say that college football is known for cheating. I guess both sports have their reputations of that, but I don't know. Just like college football feels sometimes like a dirty game. So I don't know that there will be the constant pearl clutching, the constant vitriol being directed at Michigan for years to come. Now, don't get me wrong. You get Michigan on your schedule, your fans are going to be booing them. There's going to be a local reaction everywhere that Michigan visits. But it's not going to be like Houston. And at least I'll say this in the NCAA's defense, at least as slow as they were to bring down punishment and as unsatisfying as the punishment is, At least they didn't liken the national championship trophy to a piece of metal. I think the overall unseriousness of Rob Manfred in that situation also. I mean, the NCAA, we can joke about how powerless they are, how feckless they are. But at least when they come out with the findings, they do treat it like it's a big deal. And they are acting like they're bringing down the hammer. We asked Rob Manfred, hey, what are you going to do about the World Series trophy? He's like, oh, it's just a piece of metal. Basically, why are you upset? Who cares? They want a piece of metal. Not the same. I don't know if that's right or wrong. I'm just saying I think that's probably what's going to happen. 719-24-7. 1313. Coming up next hour, which playoff teams from a year ago are most likely to miss out this year? And conversely, which teams that did not get into the postseason last year are primed to get in 2025? Welcome in hour 2 on this Friday. Super glad to have you. Appreciate those of you watching on our social media platforms. And for those who are not, just know that option is available because I love that you're listening, but it is available for you on a daily basis at XTRA Sports 1300, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. If you would like to take your participation up a notch, you can always interact with the show at 719-247-1313. Or if you are watching, just comment right there on whatever platform you're watching on. We make it easy because we want to hear from you. And this story today about Michigan and these NCAA sanctions finally coming down, their investigation has wrapped up, and basically Michigan did it. Michigan did it, and it was cheating, which is not new information, but it has been confirmed for whatever that is worth. Michigan will lose out on tens of millions of dollars that I'm sure it will take them a whole calendar year to replenish, maybe less. And question came in the last segment. Will this be looked at like the Astros? Will Michigan be branded as cheaters? Will they be universally hated by sports fans? And I gave some reasons why I don't think they'll be. I think because Michigan football is not what they were when all of this was happening. They are not a national contender. We're not last year. I think that gets people's ire up when they see a team that cheated be successful, like the Astros were for a time after the banging on the trash cans. I think the NCAA actually caring that this happened and labeling what it was and treating it like this is a serious offense, even if they are quite toothless in their punishment, compared to Rob Manfred, who basically trashed on the biggest prize his sports hand out to tell you to not worry so much about the Houston Astros cheating scandal. But I will say this. There is a way, there is a path for Michigan to get to that Astro level. And it just came to my mind because this is breaking. Michigan is appealing. This is going to give you the chance. If you want Michigan to be looked at the same way as the Houston Astros, here is your ticket. This just coming down, a statement from the University of Michigan. We appreciate the work of the Committee on Infractions, but respectfully, and they're using respectfully like Sean Payton uses respectfully, but respectfully, in a number of instances, the decision makes fundamental errors in interpreting NCAA bylaws and includes a number of conclusions that are directly contrary to the evidence or lack of evidence in the record. We will appeal this decision to ensure a fair result, and we will consider all other options. Michigan, I am begging you, go away. Shut up and go away. You do not want this. I don't know what technicality you think you're going to get off on, but it's not going to make a lick of difference to anybody else. You did not lose scholarships. You did not vacate wins. You are not facing a postseason ban. The coaches that now have show cause are not even employed by you anymore. You're not appealing your own suspension of Sharon Moore, are you? So what are you trying to get back? Your money? Or the stain that it puts on your reputation? Because if it's that, I have news for you. That's not going to help. You know why? Because we put that stain on there. We are the deciders on whether that stain is off of Michigan football. Some technicality in the NCAA bylaws will not do that. You have been judged in the court of public opinion. You are cheaters. And I just got done saying, we're not going to hate you like we hate the Houston Astros. So just be quiet, take your non-punishment, and move on. To fight this is only going to make it worse. Sure, you may get back a few $1 million, but we will not go. I mean, I can't imagine. Michigan is one of the finest institutions in the country. They churn out some of the best and brightest in our society. Do they really think that somehow they will be exonerated to the point that we will all go, you know what, Michigan, we had it wrong. We apologize. Who should we make the check for tuition out to? That's never going to happen. They may not be branded the level of cheater, and there are levels to this. They may not be branded the level of cheater that the Houston Astros are, but they are branded cheaters, and it is a brand. And even if you do not spend time in the rural parts of America, you know that once you are branded, you are branded. USC is a great example. And I don't know how some of their infractions are real, but the way that we look at what they did has evolved to the point that we don't care as much. But we remember that. But USC, but part of the reason why maybe we've softened our stance on USC is because they are in many ways irrelevant. They're not bothering us. Lincoln Riley is failing. We don't care what's going on with USC football. If they were able to stay at the height of their powers, then, and I don't know if the word is hypocritical, but, you know, maybe it is a little bit hypocritical, or our outrage has strings attached. Maybe that's the way to better put it. If you're not any good and you're not going to get in the way of us enjoying the college football playoff or our favorite team chasing a national title, then we're good. Like, you're cheaters. Go stand in the corner. You cheated. But, like, we're not going to dump on you constantly. Only when you come to our town. But there's not going to be the national discourse about Michigan all the time. We moved on. Ohio State's better than you. Go away. You bringing yourself back into this, you starting up the fight again to push back on NCAA bylaws. That's what this is about, NCAA bylaws. You're going to find some clause in Section C that is going to make it so what? You don't have to pay all the money that you're going to have to pay? Jim Harbaugh is gone. Your national title is not taken away from you. What is it that you are fighting for? Because the only result of this is that you are bringing your name more into our collective consciousness, and that's not good for you. We're not changing our minds. Because I don't know what you're saying in there, the lack of evidence. No, we have enough evidence. We're good. This is how Michigan gets to the level of Houston. This is how they get to the level of the New England Patriots. In lieu of doing this again, is fighting it. Unbelievable. This is unbelievable that Michigan is going to appeal this. I just got done saying that this punishment is handed down. This is the textbook definition of a day late and a dollar short. We don't care that much anymore. And you are making it into something bigger than it needs to be. I don't know who is advising Michigan, but this is a bad idea. Couple of your thoughts on this. Dave in CS. Any good lawyer knows that justice delayed is just justice denied. That's why in today's media-driven society, anybody who can stay ahead of the slow grinding wheels of justice will skate. That is, and I'm not joking, Dave. That is profound. And 1,000% right. Good text by you. It's going to be a tough act to follow, Brett. Yeah, that's what it is. Like, it's done. With Michigan and with even bringing Rashee Rice back into the conversation. Like, Sean Payton's talking about that the biggest key to the Broncos' upcoming season, they got to start faster. Basically putting credence into the idea that the first month of the season matters, and here the Chiefs are with a player that is going to be suspended, but not until after the first month of the season. Not until the Chiefs are on YouTube. Not until they go up against the Baltimore Ravens on the late window on CBS. Not until they appear on what is now essentially NFL Network, or at least 10% of it, ESPN. Chiefs can get rolling, can get off to a 4-5-0 start, take down one of their biggest rivals in Baltimore, get a couple of game lead on the Denver Broncos and the rest of the AFC West. Then Rashee Rice gets punished when the schedule seems to ease up just a little bit, and then they get him back in time for the stretch run in the postseason. I don't blame you. I know we stand on different sides when it comes to that football team in Kansas City. Here we can join hands together. This is garbage from the NFL. It really is. But the Michigan thing too, they did it. They benefited from it somehow. They wouldn't have done it if they didn't. Like, Jim Harbaugh is a smart guy. We're praising him for what he has done and will do with the LA Chargers. They believe this benefited them. It had to have benefited them in some way, shape, or form, or they wouldn't have done it, knowing full well it was against the rules. But they were able to do it to whatever benefit they got out of it. They won a national championship. We're now far removed, it seems, from that national championship. Time has really moved on. And now the punishment is handed down. Now they are truly being branded cheaters. We already did that. But now the people who are supposed to say whether they're cheaters are saying they're cheaters. doesn't make it very, maybe it is justice denied. Brett says, just pay the fine, Michigan. There's 110,000 people going to your games. And then he asked me how much the average ticket price is to a Michigan football game and how long would it take them to come up with that kind of money. He's asking me to math, which he knows, like, Brett, you know what you're doing. That's not fair. And it's mean-spirited. But I have an out. I'll give you a number. 3. That number, the number 3, is the amount of donors that it will take for Michigan to restore. Forget about attendance at a football game. They will get 3 lawyers, 3 doctors, maybe even the joker that convinced them to appeal. That guy could probably afford a third of what they have just been asked to pay for their crimes against sport. It would take them about 3 of their well-educated Ann Arbor grads to make up for that money. And it will absolutely be a rallying cry. Out of one side of their mouth, they're saying, we are being unfairly persecuted for our cheating, and we're going to appeal this. And then the other side of their mouth, they're whispering to their fan base and their donor base, look at how we are being persecuted. Please donate today by scanning the QR code. Ugh. This is bad. Michigan, come on now. You're smarter than that. I know you are. Or else you wouldn't charge so much to go to your school. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, using Sean Payton's analogy, a new quarterback analogy just dropped. He says quarterbacks are not pitchers that can just come in and throw their stuff. Maybe no one quarterback in the league is. How many would actually come close to that description? Because I think there are a few, and maybe more than you think. That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. So Sean Payton, one of the things he's best at is metaphors, similes, metaphors, analogies. He's really good at those. I do, and I'm being sincere when I say this, I do enjoy them. So he dropped a new one yesterday when he's talking about painting a picture. That's one of his. He's also brought up puzzles. But he talked about quarterbacks being different than pitchers in baseball. You know, pitcher in baseball can just come in. It's them and it's the catcher. Yes, there are defenders around him, but his point is they have control over how successful a pitch is. What happens after the pitch can be dependent on people behind him. But if a pitcher loses control, you're not pointing at the catcher and going, hey, man, the pitcher hung that breaking ball. That's on you. No, it's not. Pitcher hung the breaking ball. It's ultimately on the pitcher to control their pitches. And then after that, that's where the support comes in. And I think he's right. I think even you look at, let's start at the very top. Are the Chiefs what they are and what they have been? Or I'll even start higher than that. Could Brady really have done everything he did in New England without Belichick? I understand that the credit pie is cut more in Tom Brady's favor than it is Bill Belichick's. But do you think that Tom Brady becomes the greatest of all time without Bill Belichick? Do you think Michael Jordan becomes the greatest of all time without Phil Jackson? Do you think Phil Jackson becomes the greatest all time without Michael Jordan or Shaq or Kobe or Scotty, etc.? No. But back to football, Tom Brady needed Bill Belichick to achieve what he achieved. Same with Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes would not be this without Andy Reid. He wouldn't have done what he's done without Travis Kelce. Right? But he is the closest thing to a pitcher that the NFL currently has. Right? Historically, quarterbacks that make me think of this. They all had Brady, Manning, Elway, Marino are four that immediately come to my mind that were the closest to this. Now, John Elway wouldn't have won his Super Bowls without Mike Shanahan in the running game of Terrell Davis. Dan Marino never got the help he needed. Even the little bit that he needed, never got it. That's why he never won. There are people that you can credit along the way for Tom Brady and Peyton Manning's success, but historically, they're as close to that pitcher as you can get. Because you think Tom Brady, yeah, the one year he had Randy Moss, they were arguably the greatest team ever assembled. But the rest of the time, he's throwing to Julian Edelman and Wes Welker and still is great. Peyton Manning the same way. Yeah, sure, he had Demaryius Thomas in Denver, but look at the number of guys that you know because of Peyton Manning. I think of the scene from Parks and Recreation where Andy and Ron are talking about how good the Colts are at drafting. and some of the wide receivers they were able to find late. Well, how were they able to do that? Because they had Peyton Manning throwing to them. So I would say in the NFL, there are 3 surefire guys that you look at and you say they're as close to that pitcher that you can get. And it's Mahomes, and it's Allen, and it's Lamar. What they are able to do as quarterbacks, as athletes, makes that the case. You can look at some of the deficiencies in the team around them, and yet they're still incredibly successful. And I think right after those guys, you have a player like Joe Burrow, where he nearly dragged as bad of a defense as I can recall to the cusp of the playoffs. Didn't get in. And having Jamar Chase certainly helps Joe Burrow be Joe Burrow. So it's why, and I find myself kind of mirroring some of these quarterback rankings and tiers that we have been talking about, because I'm like, yeah, the 3 guys that would fit that description are Allen, Lamar, and Mahomes, and those are the 3 that I don't think anybody should be put above. But then Joe Burrow's the next guy, and then maybe there's some separation. And then you kind of look at the next group. And when we put together these lists, we're also taking into account accomplishment, right? And not to trigger a fan base that has been incredibly triggered over the last couple of weeks. But Jalen Hurts' accomplishment elevates him up the list more so than what he actually is as a quarterback. And when you're truly evaluating quarterbacks and ranking the quarterbacks, that's how you have to do it. You have to take into account that Jalen Hurts has gone toe-to-toe with the greatest quarterback of his generation and beaten him. Jalen Hurts is a big-time, big-game player. But what happened 2 years ago in Philadelphia? What was going on at the beginning of Philadelphia's season last year before they realized, you know what, we're just going to give the ball to Saquon a whole lot? Like, it's part of the picture. And what I am doing is taking out part of the picture into some quarterbacks that's going to greatly diminish who they are. And Jalen Hurts is the one that immediately comes to mind. Now, am I saying that all of a sudden Jalen Hurts now is the 15th best quarterback in the league? Absolutely not. I'm taking everything into account and saying he's a top 10 quarterback in this league. But if you just remove with the scalpel, you know, how independent he is of everything else that Philadelphia does, he's going to go down on the list a little bit. So I think you have the big 3. Then you have Burrow. I think you look at Matthew Stafford's body of work and maybe more look to him in Detroit than in LA. Because again, everybody needs help. Matthew Stafford finally got the help he needed when he went to LA and he won a Super Bowl. But Matthew Stafford put together a Hall of Fame career with one of the worst franchises in the history of sport. So I think he would be the next guy up, and those mirror my overall quarterback rankings. Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Burrow, Stafford. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Some of these quarterbacks don't have the accolades. But could you make an argument that they're worthy of discussion when it comes to this starting pitcher metaphor. Is CJ Stroud that? CJ Stroud, as a rookie, was able to get the Houston Texans into the playoffs. Last year, his offensive line was horrendous. His numbers suffered for it. There's no doubt about that. But where did Houston end up? Not only as division champions, but they also won a playoff game. Give you another one. Jaden Daniels, through 1 year, seems like that kind of a guy. That 1 year of Jaden Daniels, he showed that. He took a team that was in bad shape and took them to the cusp of the Super Bowl. And, Terry McLaurin is a key piece to what they do, but how good is that offensive line? How good are the skill positions around him? He's got some good coaching with Cliff Kingsbury. Got a good wide receiver in Terry McLaurin. But a lot of watching him, a lot of what he did felt kind of independent of what was around him. I think that's what those of us who aren't out on Justin Herbert yet cling to. I think he's another one where you go, they haven't given him weapons. Up until last year, he didn't have good coaching, and yet the Chargers have still been a good team. Not a great team, not an elite team. But you think about all that the Chargers organization has been, all of their faults, and yet Justin Herbert has been a prolific passer, and the Chargers have won football games. I think that's what people like me are clinging to with Justin Herbert. He needs help, clearly. And he needs more help than Josh Allen does, clearly. But does he need as much help as some of these other quarterbacks? I don't think so. And here's the last one. Because I think I would cut it off here, and I don't think any other quarterback would even qualify for this conversation. Is Baker Mayfield one of those guys? I know we have done a collective reimagining of Baker Mayfield, haven't we? It's been fascinating. The ups and downs of Baker Mayfield's career. The guy did take the Browns to the playoffs and beat their most hated rival in their house. What he did when he burst onto the scene, right? For a team that just drafted first overall. When Baker came in, he was terrific. Later, he got them into the playoffs, beat Pittsburgh, and then things went a little bit south. He shows up to LA with a day or two and balls out on Thursday Night Football. We've given so much credit to Sean McVay for that, and he deserves some credit, but wasn't there some Baker Mayfield in there? He wasn't able to elevate Carolina. That's why I'm adding him at the end of this, because I don't think you could put him above any of these other quarterbacks. But he has done some things with very little help that I think at least warrant him being brought up. And now he's in Tampa with more around him than he's ever had. And Tampa Bay is a dark horse Super Bowl team. And that's not a knock on Baker Mayfield, because many of those players helped Tom Brady win a Super Bowl. Am I missing anybody? Because I think after that, you're talking about quarterbacks that you really need to pile on the weapons, the system, and all this other stuff to, the Goffs, the Purdy's, Bo Nix. I think there's a steep drop off after that. Take your thoughts. 719 24/7 1313. More Drive Time Sports after this. 719-247-1313 is the number if you want to call or text into the show, as Tom has. Tom says, no way I'm going to let you change your tune on Baker Mayfield without calling you out. You crushed Baker for a long time, and I tried to defend him, and you said I was crazy. There are two things that you know about me, Tom, as well as many people. I am honest when I give my takes. I do not manufacture them. I do not make them up. It is what I believe. But I am also the type of person that when I am presented with new information, I allow my mind to be changed. So what you are saying is historically 100% accurate. And with that, I have to give you kudos for being on the right side of history. I am trying to inch over to your side. Will you allow me to be there with you? You've been there the whole time. You have been. And we fought about it. And now I am on your side on this. I am flirting with the idea of taking the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win the Super Bowl. I am defending no other quarterback more in the NFL than Baker Mayfield. I think that shows maturity, growth as a human being. To quote the philosopher Michael Scott, it takes a big man to admit his mistake, and I am that big man. In fairness to me, though, I am talking about him how many years after the fact. The bulk of my Baker bashing happened when he was in Cleveland. And by the way, I did give Baker Mayfield a ton of credit for going into Pittsburgh and winning. I remember that. I praised him. But my thought about Baker Mayfield since the day he was drafted was that John Dorsey, a GM that I know his work, I'm familiar. He was in Kansas City. I thought that he bypassed more talented quarterbacks because of Baker Mayfield's mindset. And Baker Mayfield's mindset has been something that I will say in my defense. I've liked the Baker Mayfield's mindset. The problem is, if you're not winning, some of that stuff, you don't look as good doing it. Now Baker Mayfield's winning, and it's like everybody loves the moxie from Baker Mayfield. But I said when he was drafted that I thought John Dorsey bypassed slightly more talented quarterbacks because in order to turn around the Cleveland Browns, you had to have someone with a unique mindset. And Baker Mayfield had that. And that was my explanation of why the Browns drafted him. And within that was some doubt about whether Baker Mayfield would actually be able to pull it off. And he did that one time. And he was in a good spot against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs once. But I certainly did not have Baker Mayfield at the level I have him at now. You're 100% right, Tom. But I think he has done a lot between Cleveland and now. Presented a lot of new evidence that as a mature man of the age of 40, I have taken into account and I have evolved. I have evolved on the Baker Mayfield issue. Tom says no room left on the Baker bandwagon. Sorry, Chief. All right. Well, then in that case, Baker Mayfield stinks. Forget everything I just said. If I cannot be accepted by society as a late hopper onto the Baker bandwagon, then I don't even want to praise him. So forget everything I said. That's fine. I might still take Tampa to go to the Super Bowl. Still might do it. You can't stop me. I may not. I haven't decided yet. You win this round, Tom. New Michael Porter just dropped. Take a listen. This is from the One Night with Steiny podcast. Never heard of it, but Michael Porter said this on it.
One thing I do, and then the other thing I do is like I need to see a little bit about their like beliefs. So I'll like I'm not saying I'm a misogynist or anything, but I'll throw on some Andrew Tate and see how they react.
Yeah,
or I'll
like Andrew Tate from like 5 years ago.
I'll bring up like conversations and play like devil's advocate just to see how this girl like thinks about certain things. Because if they're too, yeah, I do like
you do it because you got to protect your time and there.
Oh boy. So the first thing, there are so many levels to this. First of all, never, ever start a sentence with, I'm not a misogynist, but never do that. Also, he's talking about Andrew Tate. And if you are unfamiliar with this gentleman, you're not missing out. He has some, well, he's a misogynist. I mean, that's what he is. He's talking about Andrew Tate like he's a Barry White album. I like to throw on some Andrew Tate to see how they react. And then the third thing, which might be the best of all, is that Michael Porter stopped himself. What was he going to say there at the end? If they're too what, Michael? If the women that you are interested in dating are not what, Michael? Too feminist? Too all about women's rights? Too against traditional, antiquated gender roles? What is it that you... I mean, this is the guy that a couple of days ago said that his brother's vice was gambling and his is women. So apparently he's thrown on a lot of Andrew Tate. And by the way, and maybe I'm giving Michael Porter some credit here, I do not have the confidence that another one is going to come around that I would be willing to burn the opportunity with someone of the opposite gender by intentionally playing her Andrew Tate and getting her take on it, or playing, as Michael Porter said, devil's advocate. I do not have the confidence. And I think that that lack of confidence is well-founded, for the record, that I can just burn it, an opportunity with a woman, knowing full well another one is going to come in right behind her. To where, I mean, what is the devil's advocate? I kind of think that women shouldn't have been able to vote. Your thoughts? And by the way, could I get your number? Like, what is he playing devil's advocate to? This Michael Porter is my new favorite NBA player. Not that I agree with all of his stances or his tact with women, apparently. But he is just, I've talked about this before. As a player, we knew that him going to Brooklyn was going to free him up to do a lot of stuff. Apparently, someone in the Nuggets organization has been censoring him and has been silencing him and saying, no, Mike, you may not talk about these things. And apparently, the hands are off the wheel in Brooklyn. They're like, you do you, Mike. This is a fascinating NBA player that I am like almost ashamed to admit I'm hanging on his every word. I'm not saying that I'm going to be like nodding my head and be like, you know what? You're right, Mike. I will not be saying, yeah, Mike, to a lot of things that Michael Porter has said. I did not say, yeah, Mike, to that clip. But I can't wait to see what he says next. He's like who is this person? And where were they in Denver? Putting on some Andrew Tate as a seduction method. Your thoughts, 719-247-1313, the three stories that are driving the show next.